Everyday carry gear, or EDC for short, usually refers to the stuff we carry on our person on a daily basis. To some, this might be an area of their life barely deserving of any attention. To others, myself included, it has become almost a hobby and something to obsess over in an endless quest to find the perfect items that tick all of the boxes. Now, when we are talking about EDC gear, it is generally agreed upon that there are different layers of EDC. Beginning with the stuff that is on your person, in your pockets at all times, to the things you might carry in your bag, backpack or purse, and some people go even further than that and include another layer with the stuff they haul around in their vehicles. All pretty interesting indeed, but in today's video we will pretty much solely focus on the stuff I carry in my pockets. But rest assured, that video about my current EDC backpack is just around the corner. But anyway, in an attempt to subvert your expectations, Ryan Johnson style, we will break with the regular format of starting with the basics, as in the phone, wallet and keys, and get right into the good stuff, which is, of course, the pocket tool. Now, I have recently uploaded a video in which I have explained at length how and why my taste in EDC gear has changed over the past few years, and in particular over the past 12 months or so, from being very aesthetically driven to being more focused on functionality. In that video, I came to the conclusion that the Victorinox Swiss Champ is my favorite EDC pocket tool, even though the Victorinox Cybertool Large is probably the more useful one out of the two. Reason being that I prefer the feel of the hardwood handle scales on this particular Swiss Champ over the Celador scales on the Cybertool. But while that is still true, over the past few weeks since I started working on that video, the Cybertool has somehow always found its way back into my pockets. The main difference between these two, for those of you who don't know, is that the Cybertool features a bit driver and a bit holder with a total of 8 bits, each one double-sided, giving you a grand total of 8 usable bits, whereas the Swiss Champ sports a magnifying glass, a fish scaler and an inline 3D Phillips head. The Swiss Champ really needs no introduction. It's been Victorinox's flagship 91mm model for decades now, and it's earned its place in many customers' pockets for good reason. I am in no way taking anything away from this legend of a pocket tool, quite the opposite. The Cybertool Large, on the other hand, has been a bit of an underdog. The nerd's choice, if you like. At least that's how it seemed to me sometimes. But speaking for myself, while I can see why the tools on the Swiss Champ are useful, the bit driver is just more useful to me on most days, and I was honestly a bit surprised how often I got my Cybertool out to use this particular tool. Everything from tripod plates that use the 4mm hex bit to some very deep flathead screws, all no problem for the Cybertool, whereas I would have been reaching for my tool bag if I was carrying the Swiss Champ. As a bonus, you also get the scale tools with this one, albeit at the cost of losing the nice texture, grip and feel of the hardwood scales. So yeah, while I much prefer the feel of the hardwood scales in hand, I simply need the utility of the bit driver more often than I would have thought, to the point where I have now decided to daily carry the Cybertool and keep the Swiss Champ in my EDC pouch, which lives in my EDC backpack. More on that in another video though. I also made a few very minor modifications to my Cybertool. For one, I replaced the toothpick, which I have never used, with a mini ferrocerium rod, which I will honestly also probably never have a real need for, as I usually would bring a bigger ferro rod if I'm planning to go out in the woods, but for whatever reason I think it's kind of cool. For a more useful modification, I have exchanged the eyeglass screwdriver that lives in the corkscrew with a Victorinox SIM tool. I don't need this to switch SIM cards, but it's perfect to make micro adjustments to the bracelet of my SIN 104, as my wrist shrinks and swells up during the day. So this usually comes in handy at least once or twice a day. Good stuff. Aside from the bit driver, this Cybertool Large features a variety of different tools for both outdoor and non-outdoor related tasks. As with all pocket tools, these will not replace or be better to use than any full-size tool, but they are great to use in a pinch when you don't have their full-size counterparts on you or you are too lazy to go and grab them. Everything from a small and a large-ish blade over a wood saw, a metal saw and metal file, a pair of combination pliers and a decent pair of scissors, and all of the other useful little tools you would usually expect to find on a Swiss Army knife. Now I'm planning to make a separate video in which I will explain all of the tools on the Cybertool Large in detail and also give you examples on how and why I use them in my day-to-day life. So if that sounds interesting to you, just hit that subscribe button and wait for that video to drop. Until then, a quick word to everyone who thinks that carrying something like this is a bit preposterous and a bit overkill. Well, you're kind of right. And honestly, it's a bit hard to explain why you would carry something like this, especially to people who are not into EDC gear. But I will do my best nonetheless. So there are two main layers to my reasoning. First of all, it is true that I don't use all of the tools on this guy every day. In fact, on some days, though rarely, I might not use the cyber tool at all. But I use most of these tools on a somewhat regular basis, to the point where I don't mind the fact that this is a bit bigger and heavier than your average Swiss Army knife. Your mileage may vary though. The second reason is more of a psychological thing, I guess, and it's about a certain just in case mentality that some people, including myself, seem to have and others don't. So in short, even though I might not need the cyber tool on some days, it still gives me a peace of mind to have it with me, just in case. And also, last point on this topic, I know for a fact that absolutely nobody who has ever bought something like a Rolex Deep Sea will ever come even close to needing that 11,000 meters of water resistance rating. Most of those watches will probably never see anything deeper than your average swimming pool. But for whatever psychological reason, there is still a certain draw to something like this for a lot of people who are willing to spend north of 14,000 euros on a fat and unwieldy watch that honestly nobody really needs. And I guess we could speculate for hours on why that is the case, or we could go on with more pressing issues like what EDC flashlight has made its way into my pockets this year. It's the question that literally nobody has been asking, but I'm going to answer it anyway. For those of you who have been around for a while, you will know that over the past years I've mostly dabbled in fairly chunky EDC flashlights, mostly made from titanium and such, and somehow I had completely missed that a brand called Rovivon even existed. No idea how that happened, but anyway, over the course of 2023, I decided to size down my EDC flashlight because while I use my EDC light on an almost daily basis, especially in the winter, I rarely ever use it for longer periods of time, meaning anything more than maybe a 40 to 60 minute stroll through the evening forest. So having insane run times is not as much of a priority to me right now, which is great because that allows me to size down, especially in regards to the girth of my EDC light, and thanks to LED and battery technology, even a light as small as this can put out 650 lumens nowadays, at least for a short while. So I bought the stainless steel Rovivon A2 first, which is a decent light with a great form factor. But I later found this, the Rovivon A8, which is almost the same size, but it's lighter and has a few more features, and so I decided to up the game. What both lights have in common is their insanely unintuitive user interface. For example, you have to rapid press 5 times to unlock or lock this light. Also, it does have a memory mode, but instead of going to the last mode you used, it will go back to the last mode you have used for longer than 3 minutes. Very confusing stuff indeed. But hey, it's annoying, but still worth it in my opinion. The rest of these lights is just too good to pass on. On this A8 then, you will find not only the main LED, nay, because it also has an array of 3 more LEDs inside of the translucent handle, namely a red light for signaling or to preserve your eye's low light sensitivity, an ultraviolet light so that you will definitely not go to sleep on that hotel bed, and a white light that works fairly well as a soft reading light. Let's be real here, all of that is a bit gimmicky, but I like it. To top it all off, you get a pocket clip with a magnet and a USB-C charging port. Overall, it's a great, compact and very versatile light that fits into every pocket, never gets in the way, and comes in handy usually multiple times a day. So to round this segment off, I will close with this. In terms of high functionality and clean aesthetics, having the Swiss Champ with hardwood scales and the Rovivon A2 in your pockets is a pretty hard to beat setup. But if you want to go for maximum functionality in a similarly compact setup, the Cybertool Large and Rovivon A8 combo is kinda hard to beat. And with the interesting part out of the way, let's move on to the boring basics, which is the phone, wallet and keys. I promise I'll make this quick in order not to bore you out of your skull. I know you have places to be. So the phone then, still the iPhone 13 Pro. holding up just fine. It might look like the screen is cracked, but nay, that is just the screen protector. Dropped it a couple of times on concrete, but the actual phone remains unharmed. In the summer, I keep my iPhone in a quad lock case because I use that guy to quickly mount my phone to my motorcycle and mountain bike, but truth be told, I rarely get to ride either of the two as often as I would like in the winter, so no need for such a bulky case, and therefore I keep my iPhone in this green Apple leather case during the winter. It's starting to fall apart a bit and it has left an ugly green stain on one of my pants after I got caught in torrential downpour, but other than that, it looks pretty nice and it keeps my phone safe. My wallet of choice is still the Grain wallet by Taurus Can. I made a whole video about this wallet, so go watch that if you need the details, but for this one, we will just focus on what's inside. A few things have stayed the same, like the little twisty pen that I keep clipped on the inside of the wallet. I get a lot of questions about the brand, so this pen is made by a company called Online, and I'll try to link it in the description for anyone who cares. Other than that, I have moved away from keeping my house key in the key slot of this wallet because someone pointed out what should have been obvious to me, which is that if I were to ever lose this wallet, whoever would find it would get not only all of my personal information, including my address, but also the key to my front door, which is not great. I simply keep a small pair of tweezers in that slot. These are still there from a few weeks ago when I carried the Swiss Champ instead of the Cyber Tool. The Cyber Tool has a pair of tweezers, but whatever, can't really hurt to have these for backup. However, we are not done yet, as there are now also 2 credit card sized tools in here that I haven't talked about before. First one being the stainless steel multi-tool type of thing. It was an impulse buy, don't judge, but it comes in handy every now and then. It's good enough to tighten a bolt on your bicycle if something has rattled loose, for example, and this sort of stuff happens to me occasionally. Albeit less often in the winter, but whatever, it's not in the way, so it stays in my wallet. The other item is this credit card shaped AirTag thing, which would help me to find my wallet if I ever were to lose it. At least that's what I hope. It works with the Find My app on iPhones, and unlike other products of this sort, it can actually be recharged via a special little charging adapter that is included in the box. That means that you don't have to buy a new one every time the battery runs out of juice. That rechargeability, however, comes at the expense of battery life. While other non-rechargeable products of this sort will probably last 2 or 3 years, this thing will most likely need a recharge after 6 or 8 months. Can't really tell yet though, since I've only had it since December. But again, bit of a peace of mind thing. As for my keys, I have gone back to a very simple little leather organizer. This guy, however, lives in my jacket pocket, so it's technically not always on my person. I currently have 5 keys on it, and that seems to work pretty well. And that's it for the basics, I guess. But to round this video off, let's not forget about my watch, and the watch that currently gets the most wrist time is the Sin 104. For whatever reason, this seems to be my preferred watch in the winter. Honorary mention to the Apple Watch SE though, which has been great for tracking my workouts lately. It's sometimes hard to stay active when it's dark outside all hours when I'm not at work, and so this one comes in really handy. But anyway, that's that, my friends. I consider this a very well dialed in carrying system, so this might be my last EDC update for a good while. With that being said, since all of the stuff that I showed you today is subject to taste and circumstance, I might change my mind about everything I've shown you just a few months down the road. Right now, that seems highly unlikely though, but I mean, who knows, right? That's it for this video though. If this was interesting to you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more EDC and photography related stuff, and I'll see you around. Take care.